Hello and welcome to the Campbell Manahan show. I am once again joined by the one and only Jack Rizzo. This is the day that the AP poll came out. So there's just a little bit of, at least there's some more college football stuff to talk about. I am a big component of maybe we shouldn't have this poll as a whole because the preseason
Yeah.
poll matters too much for the fact that it is always wrong, but also like, I mean, yeah, it's just hard to get a correct poll. Like, I don't know how you possibly in the college football landscape could like manufacture a correct AP poll to start the season. You're always going to have terribleness. I think last year the standouts were the fact that like three of their top five were not ranked after like week 6 or whatever because they
Yeah,
was
I think it was three of
Penn
the top
State,
four, actually.
yeah,
I think they were
yeah,
all four.
Texas, Penn State, Clemson, and they're all just immediately out of the AP poll. So it happened quickly. So I mean, we can name them like that means your Oregon at sitting at 2. Don't be too comfortable. Maybe they just completely fall off the face of the earth, and you just never know what happens. But overall, what I think we're gonna first jump into as IU students and people specifically that will be covering IU football all season long this year, like what our immediate reaction is to IU being sixth. A bit more details on IU being sixth. They received the third most first place votes, but still were far back at sixth, meaning there definitely were some people that would put them at like 10 to even that out. Like there had to be AP voters similar to what happened to the coaches, where those AP voters had to have pushed them back down to make them at this sixth spot. So it is an interesting spot. Jack, what is your first thoughts on Indiana football being at rank 6?
To be honest, I'm not really surprised. This is exactly where they were ranked in the coaches poll as well. I think it makes sense for a couple of reasons. If you look at all of the teams in the top five, all five of those teams are returning their starting quarterback from last year. So I think that plays a big role in this. Not to mention, you almost never does a defending national champion get put number one. You got to start things up before the season starts, and that's kind of why I agree with you. Where I think getting rid of the preseason AP poll is honestly not a bad idea, but it's a moneymaker specifically for some of those big week one matchups and matchups down the road. Kind of gets the betting lines going and things like that. But Indiana being six, I mean, it could be worse. They could be out of the top 25, perhaps. Like TCU, I remember the year after they made the championship, were ranked like 20, and then they lost in week one and weren't ranked again. So at least they're getting some sort of respect. This is the highest they've ever been ranked to start a season in their history. So that definitely has to mean something. But not surprised, but we'll have to see how correct they are.
Yeah, my key takeaway for this would be like my number one thing would be how are we as IU football fans like mad at being ranked 6th with where we've been as a program? I don't think 6th is the spot you can be mad at. It is maybe mildly disrespectful. I do think they should be higher after coming off of the national title game and just everything that's happened with Signetti. There's been no reason for them not to be higher necessarily than this. I do think it's a bit of disrespect, but I think that's kind of a good thing. First of all, I kind of enjoy having a little bit of disrespect for IU. It'd be bad if like I think it could give you a bad mindset if you just get ranked number 1 and everyone's honoring you throughout the entire offseason. Everyone's like, Signetti's the best person ever. Indiana football's just going to waltz in and win another championship. That can give you a bad mindset. So I'm cool with the fact that there's still room to grow, room to climb. I think there's a few of these, or I think there's 2 teams that I would say I would probably put IU ahead of. But other than that, I don't think I definitely wouldn't put them at 1. I think 4 is a good spot for where I think they would have been. Give them like the theoretical, be like, yeah, I think they'll be in the top 4. They'll get a bye in the playoff. But they're saying if the season ended today, they'd be 6. But that's still like, I mean, we saw Miami last year as the 10 seed in the playoff and went all the way to the championship. So you just need to get in. So 6 is a good spot to be in for now.
Yeah, I think it is a little disrespectful. You got him behind 2 teams who didn't even make the CFP last year. I don't really have a problem with any of the teams in the top 5 being in the top 5. I think that all 5 of those teams ahead are going to have really good years. But having a couple of those teams ahead of Indiana, who just went 16-0, who beat 2 of the teams in the top 5 last year, including one of those teams twice, I think it definitely is a little disrespectful, and it's definitely going to be bulletin board material for Kurt Cignetti. The
Yes.
AP voters may have just made a huge mistake giving Kurt Cignetti bulletin board material for the 2026 season, and that's coming on. Kurt Cignetti's already been coaching with a chip on his shoulder, and if you're going to just continue to make that chip even bigger, it could mean dangerous things for the rest of college football.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. You don't want to give the guy who's just dominated this game for 2 years now any bit of like disrespect or anything where he can just be like, guys, these guys don't believe in us, and we just won the national championship last year, and just it's a scenario where I'm just like, cool. Like my initial reaction to seeing IU at 6 was like, yeah, fine, this seems about right. That's okay. We room to grow. And
it's right about where I expected.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I do think worth noting is definitely where a lot of these Big Ten teams that we are seeing in here. You have obviously Ohio State at 1, and then you have Oregon at 2. So they are putting Big Ten 1, 2. Then you got Indiana at 6, and I would say that is the tier 1 of the Big Ten. And there's
undoubtedly,
and then there's a clear tier 2 also, especially according to these rankings, where you have 14 USC, 16 Michigan, 17 Washington, 18 Penn State. So they're all basically in a row there, with BYU splitting it up a little bit. And then I would still put Iowa then in that tier 2 as well. Iowa at 22. So I think clearly the AP poll is just like, yeah, these are our tiers in the Big Ten. We're gonna put 3 of them in that top 6, and then the other ones we're gonna like just group in the middle and let them sort itself out throughout the year. I think, is there any like team jumping out to you about where their placement was, Jack?
I thought Washington in particular, and I know there's a lot of hype around Washington this year. I wasn't sure though if they were going to get ranked in the top 25. I'm not sure how many Big Ten teams they were going to throw in there. And Washington didn't have an amazing season last year. I'm not upset at the ranking though, because I think Demond Williams has a chance. I'm not saying he is, but has a chance to be the best quarterback in the Big Ten this year. Totally. He is that talented, and I think Washington's got a lot of really good talent on that roster. And you know they have one of the best home field advantages too, I think, in the Big Ten. That's a really tough stadium to go and win. So 17, a little bit higher than I thought, but I'm not upset at it at all. USC 14, right around where I expected them. Yeah. Same with Michigan 16. Penn State 18, maybe a little bit higher than I think they should be, but it's Penn State. There's a lot of hype around them with the new coach coming in, and he brought in most of his players from Iowa State, who's obviously been one of the better teams in the Big 12 over the last number of years. And then Iowa 22, fine with that as well. Iowa was really underrated last year. They were a couple of plays away in certain games from being a playoff team. Barely lost to Indiana, barely lost to Oregon. Iowa was a lot closer than you'd think at being in the CFP last year.
Yeah, no, totally. I'm very glad for Iowa to be in here. I think they totally deserve it. I was a little bit worried they wouldn't be in here, but they got it. That's good. I'm with you with the Washington thing. They are a team that I think they will they'll play the role of spoiler this year in the Big Ten, because I don't know if you've looked at their schedule. They basically play everybody. So they'll get their crack at all the big dogs in the Big Ten. But because of that, I think they might beat one. They might play the role of spoiler and ruin somebody's season. But I don't think they're going to. I think by the end of the year, you're not going to look at them as a ranked team. I think you're going to look at them as, and if they are ranked, it's going to be like 24 and they are 8-4. And they just have lots of respect because they have one really like top 5, like legitimate, like top 10, top 5 win under their belt that they really respect. But I mean, like you said, Demond Williams, we can talk about him a lot. He is super talented. That team has talent, but I didn't love their portal class. Because I mean, let's be fair, a lot of their portal class was just keeping Demond Williams. That was a lot of their energy throughout the offseason, was let's make sure we keep this guy. Let's contractually hold him here. And they succeeded in doing that, but we'll see how it plays out for their future. I think Penn State at 18, it first made me be like, really, Penn State? And then I remembered, you know what? Where would Iowa State be if Matt Campbell was still there and all those players were still there? And I'd be like, Iowa State would be like 22 in this poll. So Penn State at 18 makes sense because you just have better resources there. So I think overall that's a good spot for them to be. I think Michigan at 16 is a good spot because it's we think they're really talented, but they do have to play everybody this year. We're just going to immediately find out who they are really in week 2. Like, they host Oklahoma, who's ranked 10 in this. Immediately, Michigan is going to be like, it'll be immediately known who is Kyle Whittingham's Michigan team. Is Bryce Underwood up for the task of being the quarterback that he should be according to like all of his high school ratings and the money Michigan is giving him to be there. Who will Bryce Underwood be? Will they have probably their best receiving core they've had in the last like 4 or 5 years. Will that live up to it? Will they be able to run the ball like Michigan always is able to? Which I think that one might be the more given amongst the questions. But where's their defense going to be? Immediately, every question will be answered for Michigan in week 10, or not week 10, in week 2 against Oklahoma. Yeah, so I think the Big Ten teams overall, I think they're in the right spot. It's worth noting that a few Big Ten teams did receive votes that didn't make this poll. I think it's worth noting Illinois is seen as one of the better teams out there still with receiving 9 votes. They obviously aren't super high in this list, but they're about what? That's like the 31st team is what they're saying they are. It's worth noting that they at least, I think it's worth noting that they are giving the Big Ten respect that a team that I think is super mediocre in the Big Ten is going to be put at like the 31 spot. I believe Minnesota also received votes. I actually think Minnesota will be better than Illinois this year, probably. So we'll see how that goes. Just PJ Fleck typically does better when he has the older team. And I think this is one of those years where he has like just a ton of seniors, ton of fifth-year seniors, and a lot of just guys that are like his guys through his program for 4 years now and are ready to show what they can do. So I think there'll be a better Minnesota team. Now that ceiling is, I think their ceiling is like ranked 20 by the end of the year, but that's still
that's great though.
That's a great year
for Minnesota though.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's worth noting that it is definitely worth noting that they got some votes, but overall, I'm not shocked the Big Ten is where it is. It's like you have your clear tier 1, and then you just bunch up those tier 2 teams and let them settle that all throughout the season. I do think next is time to transition into looking at this SEC, because you're always going to have a ton of teams up at the top in the SEC. That's always what's going to happen. Something that doesn't normally happen is that none of them receive first place votes. No, not a single AP voter thought, Georgia might be the best team this year. Not a single one thought, Texas, they might be the best team this year. I think those are the only 2 that you even would actually think about. So I don't think they put any thought towards like Texas A&M being number 1. I don't think anyone would have thought that, but I am a little bit surprised that nobody gave Texas or Georgia a vote on the top.
Me too. Yeah. I completely agree with you on that. Not surprised though to see this number of SEC teams in the top 25. It's like this every year. I don't really have a problem with any of these teams that are ranked really in the place they are. I thought LSU would crack the top 10, at least to give some more hype to that week 1 matchup against Clemson. New coach, they're the new hot team. I thought they'd put them in the top 10 just for that. Not to mention they play Ole Miss, who's 2 spots ahead of them in week 3. And kind of staying with that game, I thought Clemson, I know we're not in the ACC yet. I'm shocked not to see Clemson here, so that could be a top 25 matchup. We only have one top 25 matchup in week 1 this year, and it's a 9 versus 24, which, I mean, that's top 25 matchup. You can't be mad about that, but it's also a neutral site. Like last year, we had 3 top 10 matchups last year in week 1, let alone top 25. This year's different. All the good matchups this year are in week 2. Yeah. Week 2 slate is unbelievable. Week 1, a little bit less though this year, but going back to the SEC, I think all of these teams, really no problem with any of them. I don't think Mizzou should have been ranked. I think that's just kind of to give the SEC a little bit more hype than it deserves. I honestly think that Ole Miss should be ranked ahead of Texas A&M. I think Trinidad Chambliss is maybe the best quarterback in all of college football. We saw Pete Golding win a couple of CFP games last year. I know the coaching staff probably took a little bit of a downgrade, but I still think there's a lot of talent on that Ole Miss roster. And I'm not really sure about Texas A&M. I know they won their first 11 games last year. I'm just not sure they're going to do that again this year. Obviously, Texas A&M has the money and the resources to do really well, but I don't really know if they deserve to be ranked over Ole Miss after A&M went 1 and done in the CFP last year.
Yeah. No, I think A&M last year was one of those teams where it's a schedule team where they were a good team. They might have still made the playoffs if they had a tougher schedule, but they didn't have a tougher schedule, and they really cruised their way to those 11 wins. They were able to just go in cruise control all the way. They ended up then losing that just absolute ugly game against Miami where the weather was terrible and nobody could do anything, and Miami squeezed it out. That was a horrendous game, but the SEC you're always going to get a lot of teams in here. I think Tennessee is interesting to me. just them being ranked in general. I'm not that high on Tennessee this year. They don't really know who their quarterback is yet. They have a lot of questions where I'm like, Josh Heupel, I think is a good coach, but they typically have good years when they know who their quarterback is and they fully trust that quarterback. And I don't think they have that this year. I don't think it's going to work as well. They might have a good run game, but they need the high tempo electric receiving game. I don't think they're going to have that this year. I Missouri at 25 is like, yeah, sure, it's boosting the SEC. I will give them at least Ahmad Hardy. This is ranking if assuming Ahmad Hardy is playing, and Ahmad Hardy is maybe the best running back in college football, and is probably like he's legitimately is a Heisman candidate, mainly for I would say the storyline. Like if he goes for like 1,800 yards and like 25 touchdowns, the storyline of him getting shot in the offseason is going to be like very pushable. So they're basically Missouri being at 25 is like they totally could knock off a big team if Ahmad Hardy just has a stupid nuclear game against somebody, but I don't think they'll be very good consistently throughout the year. I think the SEC is just, I think maybe the biggest thing here is probably the fact that Alabama's technically, they don't think Alabama's a playoff team right now, is what this is saying, which,
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't think, they don't think Alabama's a playoff team, and if Alabama's not a playoff team, then Kalen DeBoer is on a fiery seat this offseason if they don't make the playoffs this year. So
they have Alabama as what, the 7th best team in the SEC right now.
Yeah.
Like that, like when did we ever think this was going to happen? Now, the thing is, I don't know if it's necessarily a crazy ranking. Like Alabama wasn't that good last year. I think Ty Simpson maybe got some more hate than he deserved. I thought Ty Simpson was honestly the reason Alabama was in the CFP last year.
Yeah, he had nothing to work with.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing to work with. And I actually think Kalen DeBoer is a really good coach. I just don't know if that's the right spot for him. Like, if Kalen DeBoer was still at Washington, he and Damon Williams, that could be like they could compete in the Big Ten if he was still at Washington. But
no, this is not shade at a coach that literally was in a national title game 3 years ago now. He is a great coach. It's the wrong culture fit. I'm with you on that. Like, him at Alabama is not the right culture. He does not fit the SEC culture in general. He needs to get, like, next Big Ten job that becomes open, go there. Like, sneak out. Just escape. Like, come back to the North.
Or imagine Kalen DeBoer in Iowa, like, finally turning around that offense and making them into a contender, maybe, finally.
Yeah, I like that a lot, actually. That would be really good for them.
Although they're never going to fire Kirk Ferentz, so they're just going to wait for him to step down.
But he eventually will retire, and so eventually they'll have, eventually they'll have the chance to become a modern football team when they do indeed see him retire one day. But maybe he'll retire when he's literally 105. We never know. But the SEC is as a whole, it's a good conference. They clearly are. I think it's hard to do the tiers of this conference compared to what the Big Ten. It's like, oh, clear tier. This is like, I'd put Georgia and Texas in a top tier. I think that's fair to say. I think Texas is a very interesting team, and I have something to say about them later. But yeah, they're in that tier one though for sure. Then you have this like A&M, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, LSU, Alabama group where it's just
they just bunched up. They just bunched up everybody.
And truly, it's such a challenge to rank those teams because like 2 or 3 of them are probably in the playoffs, but which 2 or 3? And it's a tough one to do because you're not going to have 5 SEC teams in this playoff. So if you think Georgia and Texas are going, there's probably only 2 spots for the SEC after that, and that is between Ole Miss, Oklahoma, LSU, and Alabama. And every single one of those programs will consider this season a major disappointment if they do not make the playoff. So
you've got multiple coaching jobs on the line here if their teams don't make the playoffs, most likely.
Yeah. I think the only one that would not be in the line at all is probably Lane Kiffin. He's a safe job for now. Now it can become not safe, but for now he is extremely safe. But everyone else will be all of a sudden on the hot seat if they don't make the playoff, and those teams are not going to be nice to that. And the SEC is a very interesting conference. It's like that 20 Tennessee. It's like they clearly think that's a team that's playoff caliber. How though? Because how are they going to be in the top 4 in the SEC with this ranking? It's like, how do you actually get there?
I wouldn't have put Tennessee over Iowa, for example.
Yeah.
Just my opinion. I'm not. I think Tennessee's going to play. I think they're going to be kind of like what Washington is, and be like spoiler, where they're going to have one huge win at some point in the year.
Yeah.
Tennessee will. I think they'll beat a really good team at home. Like I think they play Alabama at home. They play
Totally.
LSU at home. They'll definitely win a big home game this year. That'll keep them afloat in the rankings. But I just don't really see them as a CFP team. But looking at these other SEC teams, I'm surprised we haven't mentioned Oklahoma yet, being right there number 10. I want to mention them because they have undoubtedly the best defense in the conference,
Yes.
maybe the best defense in the entire country. So if Oklahoma is going to make the CFP again this year, it's going to be on the backs of their defense again. Because I'm not super high on John Mateer. I don't think he's a bad quarterback, but I don't think he's going to be the reason they make the CFP this year if they make it back.
Yeah, John Mateer definitely has the opportunity to prove people wrong, because everyone was like in love with John Mateer, including me, by the way. Like right after that Michigan game, where it's like, okay, yeah, this guy's awesome, and then he gets hurt and then just like falls apart, and since then hasn't been good. We just have to see it from him now. He has to do it again. He has to be, and Oklahoma's offense is going to need him to probably be as good like as he possibly can be, because it's not an offense that's designed necessarily to score a ton of points. Their defense is designed to keep them in games. But I think Oklahoma definitely has the opportunity to win a lot of close games and make the playoffs. I had them in the playoffs. I know you didn't, but they are like that borderline SEC team where it's like, will they be better than Texas A&M and Ole Miss, or will they be slightly worse? We'll see. It's going to be a very interesting season for the SEC.
It's the opposite of the Lincoln Riley days at Oklahoma, where they scored a ton of points and their defense couldn't stop anybody. I will say, if Oklahoma does make the playoffs, if their defense has a sensational game, they could beat anybody. If they they could hold the defense to 10 points. If they score 10 or 13 points, they could win games. So if they go 10-2, make the CFP, and their defense is playing as good as it is all year, they have a chance to win games. But I agree with you. No more than 5 SEC teams in the playoffs, because you're going to probably have 3 Big Ten teams. You're going to have the ACC champion, the Big 12 champion, maybe one other team from the Big Ten or ACC, and then your group of 5 in there too.
Yeah. There's just not enough spots, and the Big Ten totally can squeeze a 4th team. I mean, you have the tier of the USC, Michigan, Washington, Penn State, Iowa, even. Any single one of those teams that gets to 10 wins in the year, they're taking a 4th Big Ten spot. Assuming then, this is all obviously still assuming that Ohio State, Oregon, and Indiana have the seasons we assume they will have and do not fall apart. But yeah, I think overall, very interesting poll. It's not necessarily like what I would like. It's about what I would do. Like, this poll is nothing crazy. They're not like making any statement by like, whoa, we put Tennessee at 13 or something crazy like that. They're not doing that. They didn't do anything stupid, at least for now. It will look stupid in a few weeks, I'm sure. But at least for now, as we are consuming the content of these teams in training camp, this is about where they should be for now. But do you have any team that you would like to shout out that you think this poll is completely underrated and you think are way better than what they look like in this poll?
Teams that are in the top 25, right?
Yeah. Or you know what? Go for one outside. If you think there should be a team ranked that's not, you can claim that also.
Well, in this top 25, not really. I feel like you might just say Indiana's the most underrated. They probably should be up there in that top 5. I'm trying to think. I honestly think this is a pretty solid poll, all things considered. There's nothing crazy in here. Maybe Iowa I think maybe Iowa should be closer to like the 17 range than 22, because Iowa was so close to making the CFP last year, and we just know that Iowa is always going to have one of the best defenses, one of the best special teams units, and if their offense is half decent, they're going to contend. But let's go outside the top 25 maybe for another team. First of all, blows my mind that Florida got 51 votes for the top 25. They were atrocious last year, and Auburn got votes too. Like, what are we doing here? If there's any SEC team that should have got votes, it should have been Vanderbilt, considering the year they had last year. And I'm looking, they only had 8 votes. I'm gonna actually go with a team that you mentioned in the last Substack we did, Oklahoma State. I think Oklahoma State has a chance to. They got 8 votes for this top 25. I think Oklahoma State, they're basically going to be what North Texas was last year, and North Texas was very close to making the CFP. And it would be great to see Oklahoma State be good at college football again. They've been so bad over the last number of years, but back 2021, they were only 1 yard away from making the CFP. If we can see that version of Oklahoma State this year, that's going to be really fun. And the opportunity's there for them. The Big 12, I would say, is pretty wide open this year. So if Oklahoma can go on a run, if their offense can get going, I forgot the name of their quarterback from North Texas, but I know he's really good.
Drew Mestamaker.
Yes, him. Yeah. Drew Mestamaker.
Yeah, awesome.
If Drew Mestamaker lights it up this year in the Big 12, Oklahoma State could be a sleeper playoff contender. And I don't think that's a crazy take.
Yeah. I mean, you took that one from me. I was totally going to say Oklahoma State. I love Oklahoma State this year. I think you're not going to find many people who will just. I'm going to enjoy watching them because here's the thing. I could be wrong and they might end up 8-4, but I still will love watching them because they're just going to let their offense loose and they're just going to be a fun team to watch this year in the Big 12. If you enjoy a higher scoring offense, and it's kind of like I kind of think it's the right team for that North Texas program to be taken to, because Oklahoma State basically just gave up on Gundy. He is their career best coach, and they will forever, I think, still honor him as their best coach. But Gundy basically he did something stupid, which is he didn't think NIL would last and stick. So then he didn't campaign to get more NIL money. That was dumb of him. But because of that, those Oklahoma State boosters were holding on to the paychecks. They were holding on to money, not giving it to the football program. And now they are. Now they're all in this year. They're all in to just build up this program, build us back. I think they went 1-11 last year. But I totally see how it could be the Kurt Signetti year one flip, where it's they go from being absolutely terrible, bottom of the league, to now you are a 9-10 win team competing for a playoff spot, and it's just like a great boost. And I'm really excited to watch them. I thought they should be about with where Houston is. I think Houston and them are both in about the same category, where they could be really good this year and potentially threaten Texas Tech, who I think is, or BYU, who those teams are seen as the top of the conference. But they totally could threaten. But they did not get the respect that I thought deserved. I think another team, I have to pull one more out on this list. I think Virginia Tech could get more votes. At least maybe even they shouldn't be ranked. Maybe they should be the 26th spot where they received the most votes that didn't get ranked, and Clemson shouldn't be there. But you can't really tell me that Clemson should be above where Virginia Tech is in my mind here. I think Virginia Tech's going to have a better year than Clemson. I don't think Clemson's going to be very good. I'm out on Dabo and Clemson. I think they're going to get blown out against LSU, beat by 30, and then it's just going to spiral from there. And that, unfortunately, might be the best game we have in week one. So I think week one is we need it to be a chaos day, because if there's not going to be chaotic upsets, then the week might kind of suck. Then again, if there is a week to suck, maybe it should be week one, because that's the week where we'll all just be happy to watch football anyways. Even if the football's not good, we'll just be happy there's football on our screens. So overall, yeah, I think Virginia Tech and Oklahoma State, which we touched up a lot on. But Virginia Tech, James Franklin coming in, we know he's just good at getting wins. Now, last year it fell apart and he lost the team, but I think they could definitely get 9 wins, and I think a 9-3 team in the ACC probably will be about in the 24 spot by the end of the year. So I think they definitely could be a ranked team this poll.
Yeah, totally agree. Going back to Oklahoma State, obviously they took everybody from North Texas. I'm kind of bummed about that, because I would have loved to see last year's North Texas team play this Indiana team in week one, because that could have at least been a little bit interesting. I mean, it's not going to really affect the outcome of the game, but rather than Indiana winning by maybe 30 points, they might win by 60 points, because I don't really think North Texas is going to be that good this year. Indiana, I think, is almost a 50-point favorite. And for a team that almost made the CFP last year, that's a little bit disappointing. But I agree with you. I think if there's a week to suck for college football this year, week one, because we're going to be at that North Texas game, and there's really no good games in the early window of week one. So I don't really think, Campbell, we're going to miss that much. The one interesting game is Ole Miss versus Louisville. And it's interesting because it's a neutral site game. So, if the game was in Oxford, I think Ole Miss would just absolutely blow LSU out. But I think this is going to be one to watch. It's actually on the Sunday of week one. It's a night game.
Yeah.
And You and Noah Bedores talked a lot about how high you guys are in Louisville. You had them making the ACC championship game, so maybe Louisville surprises some people in week one, and maybe Ole Miss will miss. Maybe Ole Miss will miss Lane Kiffin maybe more than they originally thought. So that's the one interesting thing to watch in week one. But week two, though, is going to be where all the good matchups are.
Yeah,
early
it
in
is
the season.
it's certainly a trap matchup for Ole Miss, where it's like, yeah, you don't have the same coaching staff, you have a lot of the same players and coaches that were coached under Lane Kiffin, so they have a lot of the same philosophies. But we'll see what happens. Louisville coached very well, always has good quarterback play, and is just going to be a consistently good football team. They beat Miami last year. Like, this is a team that
on the road.
Yes. So like, this team can be very good and beat good teams. They can cause utter chaos. And I love Louisville so much this year because of their schedule. It's like, yes, they do play Ole Miss, and that is a tough matchup. That does not hurt them in the ACC running. So they lose this game, it's like, okay, move on. Like, we're still 0-0 in the ACC, and I think that's what they'll see that as. So it's definitely a team I think will be very competitive in the ACC this year. Yeah, but no, I think Louisville's in a good spot. I think 24 is about right for them.
If Louisville wins the ACC and makes the CFP, it's going to be on the backs of coaching. They have probably the most well-coached team in the ACC, because at the end of the day, Miami is not that well-coached of a team, as talented as their roster is. And we saw last year, Mario Cristobal could make some really dumb mistakes in games that could cost them. Well, I mean, actually, a couple of years ago, Georgia Tech, when they could have kneed the ball out and said he ran the ball. 3 years later, I still cannot believe that actually happened. I was watching that game. Mine was absolutely blown that they did that. So, yeah. But going back to the Cards, if they make the playoffs this year, all about their coaching, because they're a well-coached team. I would say, I don't know how high their ceiling is, but they have one of the highest floors, I think, out of any team in the top 25. You know they're going to win at least 9 games, most likely 10, and they're going to be a really competitive team.
Yeah. So, one more thing I would like to touch on. I talked about it a little bit earlier, in where we have last year's AP poll, and you have 3 of those top 4 teams just not being ranked quickly into the year. Like, do you see this as a year where there's potential that all of a sudden we look at it in week 8 and just Notre Dame or Texas or Georgia or Oregon or Ohio State or Indiana, as much as that would suck for us, or just like any of these, like, let's just say, like, any of the teams that you see on this list, do you think just shouts out, nope, they're going to lose a lot of games, that team is not going to be ranked by the end of the year?
There definitely will be one team, I would say, in the top 15. Every year there's one or two teams in the top 15 who are ranked really high and don't end up performing. If I had to guess, it's really tough for me. I'd probably say LSU, though, as crazy as that sounds. I mean, I know there's a lot of hype around LSU with Lane Kiffin, with Sam Leavitt, but their schedule is not particularly easy. Like, if LSU loses by like 20 points to Ole Miss in week 3, which is very possible, that's going to be one of the craziest atmospheres, probably the craziest atmosphere of the entire season. But LSU also they play Tennessee, Alabama, Texas. If LSU can't win these close games, and we saw Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss kind of have a knack for not winning big games. If LSU kind of, loses some of these games and they end up with 3 or 4 losses, sure, they'll be ranked like towards the back end of the top 25, but they have national championship aspirations this year. And if LSU can't win some of those close games, if Lane Kiffin can't, defy, the stereotypes around him, I think LSU is the team most likely. I'm also not super high on Texas Tech or BYU, but the Big 12 is so open this year, and Texas Tech in particular has such an easy schedule that even if they're not very good, they're going to do what Texas A&M did last year, just like limp to 11 or 12 wins and kind of just cruise into the CFP.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. I think that LSU totally, it's like the one thing for, like, it's because it's the first year coach. It's just like, how quickly will Lane Kiffin adjust to this new team? Also, I would like to say it, I'm not as high. I know that Lane Kiffin can coach a quarterback. I'm not doubting that he can coach a quarterback. I'm not as high on Sam Leavitt as the portal rankings were. I thought he's an okay quarterback at Arizona State, and I think he'll be like the 7th best quarterback in the SEC this year, but they need him to be way better than that. So I don't know if he's going to be able to be that. Now, can good coaching happen to him from Lane Kiffin and he could just be way better than I think he will be? Sure. But as of right now, I wouldn't put him as like people are seeing him as like one of the top quarterbacks out of that portal. I just don't think he's better than a lot of the quarterbacks that were in the portal. But I could be wrong. He could totally prove me wrong here. A team I'm going to shout out, Texas A&M. They are just like, I think they're going to win a lot of games early on the schedule. Their 3 first matchups, it's like, yeah, I think they'll win those. Then they go at LSU. I think that's going to be really tough. In Death Valley, I think they probably lose that game. They host Arkansas. They'll win that. Arkansas is going to be close. Like, Arkansas might go like 2-10 this year. Arkansas fans, it's not going to be a beautiful year for you guys. It's the first year of a new coach. They didn't really get anything out of the portal. So it's not one of those like where you bring a new coach in and he brings all these fancy gadgets and new guys. Nope, he pretty much they're just going to be bad this year. Then you have at Missouri, which totally could be a Missouri upset potential. If Ahmad Hardy is playing as I think he might be by the end of the season. You have the Citadel, that's a win. But then you end the year with at Alabama, at South Carolina, who had a really down year last year when people thought they were going to have an up year, but maybe now that people don't think they're going to have a good year, they'll have a good year because
well remember
they don't have
last year.
expectations.
Remember last year, South Carolina went into Texas A&M and they were leading by like 27 points at halftime, and it looked like Texas A&M season was going to be completely spoiled. And then they came back in the second half. But South Carolina is one of the more underrated road atmospheres in the SEC. I think that stadium gets loud, even if they're not very good. They play a lot of nighttime matchups. That could be definitely a trap game for Texas A&M. So I definitely appreciate you mentioning that one in specific.
Yeah, and then you have, but this is a brutal stretch because you have like that is totally a trap game because they just went at Alabama, then they go at South Carolina, then they host Tennessee, then they go to Oklahoma, and then they host Texas. Texas A&M will not be a playoff team, and my prediction is they will not even be ranked by the end of the year. They are going to go like 7-5 this year. This is going to be a terrible year for Texas A&M. They're going to fall apart. This team 8-4, 7-5, not ranked by the end of the season. This schedule is too tough.
I think it's gonna be like Penn State last year, where they're gonna fire Mike Elko, and then he's gonna go to like an ACC or Big 12 program and really turn them around because he did a great job at Duke, so he could do. And I
think for the most part, he's done a good job at Texas A&M. This is one of the problems with these super conferences is you have situations where you just have the death schedule and you play everybody that's tough in the conference. You also have these situations where you play nobody. And I think last year they pretty much played nobody. They played Texas, obviously, and they had some tougher matchups. But for the most part, they didn't play the big dogs. This year, they play them all, and I think they're going to really struggle because of it. And it's not even necessarily fully Mike Elko's fault. Now, Texas A&M probably will see it as his fault because they're giving him all the resources in the world. I just don't think Marcel Reed's good enough. That's really where I'm going to go for. I don't think he's a good enough quarterback to win some of these games. Yeah, so that is my team to just not be ranked by the end of the year. They're currently, I believe, 8. I don't see them being ranked by the end of the year. So I think
Marcel Reed was pretty awful in that college football playoff game against Miami. I kind of agree with you on Texas A&M. I mean, now that I'm looking at their schedule, I may honestly choose them over who did I choose again? I chose LSU. I think Texas A&M is going to be worse than LSU, actually. Yeah. I mean, if Texas A&M wants to make the CFP, they have to be one of LSU, Alabama, or Oklahoma on the road, and I don't think they win any of those games. And I kind of like the South Carolina upset now looking at it, and you also have to play Texas and Tennessee. Neither of those are guaranteed wins. Yeah. Heck, Arizona State in week 2, that's not even a guaranteed win. I mean, we saw Texas A&M a couple of years ago lose at home to Appalachian State, and their season was over. Arizona State could come in maybe and pull off a road upset. Arizona State's a well-coached team. I know they lost Sam Levin and they lost some other players in the portal, but Kenny Dillingham. Now I'm going to say Kenny Dillingham's name since I'm referring to the right team. He's a really good coach, and I agree with you. A&M 7 or 8 wins, no CFP this year. Yeah. I think they're overrated. And I agree with you. I don't know if Marcel Reed is exactly that great of a quarterback.
Yeah, I think it dies. They will live and die by how good he is. They need him to be if Texas A&M makes the playoffs, he will be a Heisman finalist. And if they don't make the playoffs, he will definitely not be. And it will be largely because he's just not good enough. And I think I would like to say he's just probably not good enough. I would like to say one more team, and I don't even believe this will happen. But Texas Longhorns could totally not make the playoffs. I don't think it'll happen. This is not my prediction. I just want to propose this world out there because they have all of the money and they have given Steve Sarkisian everything he needs. In fact, I think their offense is stupidly good this year. I think their defense probably will be really good, but their schedule's really tough. They face Ohio State in week 2. What if they lose that game? Then they go. The Texas State and UTSA games are nothing. They'll win those. But then what if they go at Tennessee and lose that? Because that's a tough road environment. You also, let's say, so now all of a sudden you're 2-2. Then you face Oklahoma. That is always going to be a close game, no matter what. It's neutral site, obviously, fully split crowd. Tough matchup, though, right there. Heck, Florida could be tough this year. They beat them last year, and they probably should be better this year. So that's interesting. Ole Miss is going to be tough. Mississippi State, probably not too tough. At Missouri, I just said, I think Missouri's going to eliminate. Missouri will knock off somebody this season. I don't know who. And Missouri probably will be like 8-4 themselves. They're not going to be very good, but they'll get an upset. So we don't know who that upset will be, but they'll claim one. We have at LSU. That's an impossibly tough matchup. You have Arkansas. That's a win. Arkansas gets 0 wins in the SEC this year. Then you have at Texas A&M, the rivalry matchup at the end of the year. That's a tough schedule for Texas. And I think they're good enough. I think they're going to be 10-2 and survive this schedule. I think they are a good enough team. But there's totally a world they go 9-3 or even 8-4. I don't see 8-4, but 9-3 and miss the playoffs. They'll still be like ranked 14, but all of a sudden Steve Sarkisian fired for not making the playoffs this year. I think it's possible.
That week 2 game against Ohio State, I think is so important in the outlook of the rest of the season. It's not important in the conference standings, but if Texas A&M gets out of that game, heck, they can afford 2 losses in the conference. But if they lose that game, oh boy, you play Oklahoma, LSU, Ole Miss, Texas A&M. You could only lose one. Tennessee, you could only lose one of those games. Yeah. I don't think 9-3 gets them in. If they go 10-2, make the SEC title game and lose, I think they would get in. You have to give them the Alabama treatment.
Yeah, it's the Alabama last year, but they need that, and that could totally happen. I could see a 10-2 team making the SEC title game again because just the chaos that can happen in the SEC. But they just need to have 10 wins. You absolutely need 10 wins by the end of the year. And heck, I could see them actually, because of that Ohio State game doesn't count the conference record. So they could be 9-3 heading and then still somehow squeeze out a conference title appearance. If they win the conference title based on a little bit of luck, then they're in at 10-3, and they need to get to 10 wins though. And 10 wins will not be easy. I think they're going to do it. This is not me saying they won't make it. I think Texas is good enough. I think they're a real national title threat. I think that offense is their offense is going to put up 45 points a game and be really good in the SEC. Their defense probably, I think, will be good enough. They've had a good defense over the past few years, so I think they'll be good enough. And I think that offense is just going to be an electric offense for Sarkisian. They need to figure out his trouble recently has been red zone scoring. So if they can they will live and die by how well they score in the red zone this year. And I think they survive. I think they're going to beat Ohio State in week 2. So now I guess I'd like to see how maybe they look against Texas State, but will I even learn that much in that matchup? I don't know. There's not really. If they look bad, you learn something, but if they look good, you don't learn anything. But
I mean, Indiana looked so bad against Old Dominion last year, and look what happened. Yeah, exactly. I agree with you. It's going to be hard for them to win 10 or more games, but I think they're going to do it. They have such a great roster. I think Arch takes a big step forward this year, and heck, he took a big step forward at the end of last year. I thought he had some games where he was just really awesome. Even though A&M was kind of out of the playoffs, but the game against Mississippi State, the game against A&M at the end of the year, Arch had some really.
Their bowl game against Michigan, he was phenomenal. And I watched that game. He killed Michigan, torched them. Now Michigan was in a bad spot as a team, but I'm not going to that's not dissing Arch for his
It's not Arch's fault,
It's not his fault that Michigan was in shambles going into that game. This was that was a stellar performance against a talented defense. Maybe they were in a little bit of a rougher spot than normal, but still a very talented defense. Arch Manning, he's making the throws now. I think he's going to be very good this year. And if Texas gets to that 10-2, I think they will be, you could totally see him in New York as a Heisman finalist this season and see him go top
100%.
And see him maybe be the number 1 overall pick if the team wants a quarterback. It is totally very reasonable to say.
And he's a Manning. There's no way there's no way he's going to let the Manning legacy, go to shambles,
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I agree. Though. I think out of all of the SEC teams, I think Sark, I think he has his seat is the hottest if Texas doesn't make the playoffs this year. Way too much talent on this roster, too much money to not make the playoffs like they did last year. I honestly am a little shocked he survived last year, even though I know they won 10 games and barely missed it. But
they blamed a lot of it on Arch being bad at the beginning of the year.
That's right. But
I think they liked how they looked. I think he saved his seat because Arch Manning looked more promising towards the end, and they were like, okay, maybe we can do something at the end of the year here. Like now that Arch Manning looks good, and like they're like, yeah, you lost that Florida game, and that was horrendous last year for losing that, but you're not going to do that type of thing again. Next year, we're going to give you all the resources, and you're going 11-1. That's what they think. I don't think they're going to go 11-1. I think they go 10-2. But still, I think 10-2 is phenomenal. They might end up that Ohio State win will be one of the best wins in the country. That's like a 10-2 team for Texas is probably like the 5 seed. Like they're probably pretty high up in the rankings because it's going to be a great year of college football. I think a lot of teams are going to go down, and a lot of teams are going to rise. And I think Texas will be. I think they are in a good ranking. I'm not saying they are an overrated team at 5. I think 5 is actually a great spot for them with how tough this schedule is going to be. I think you'll see them maybe at 1 at one point this year, and then they'll lose to somebody impossible. Like if they beat Ohio State in week 2, they're probably the number 1 team all of a sudden. And so that probably puts them at 1. But then what if they lose to somebody else? They have the Tennessee game or the Oklahoma game. What if they lose one of those? That's going to be tough. So I see them as a good 10-2 team. I think we've talked enough about them overall, but I'm just so excited for this year of college football. Is there any more thoughts you have on this AP poll?
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What I was gonna say was going back to you said Texas 2 losses being a 5 seed. Georgia was a 2-loss team in 24, and they were the 2 seed when they won the SEC. So completely agree with you there. Looking at the rest of this, any other thoughts? Well, we already talked about I think Mizzou being overrated. We didn't mention Utah being 21. I think Utah is honestly I still think Utah is a sleeper, even though they're ranked. I feel like Utah is always like the most forgotten about team in the Big 12 that's good, right? Because we know Utah's going to win 9 or 10 games. And if Utah maybe outperforms their expectations a little bit, they could be a CFP team. Like Utah could easily win the Big 12, 100%. That's a really tough. Utah's another place where it's really hard to win in Utah. And I think they have a really good coaching staff, really good just overall roster. And Utah has just built up a really strong reputation in that conference.
It's the tradition there.
Yeah, they're just good. They're just consistent. That's their reputation. They're like Iowa, basically. Yeah, right. Every year winning 9 or 10 games, and kind of being on the outside looking in.
Yeah, but if they put together for 1 year, maybe they'll make the playoffs. Can they put together and win the Big 12? Potentially, they totally could. And I think 21's a decent spot for them to be in. I could see them being above SMU and putting them in the 19th spot. I don't think they should be. I don't think they're good enough to break up that Big 10 pack, so I think it's okay that they're below that. But yeah, no, they are a talented team. They don't have Kyle Whittingham anymore, but I'm blanking on who their new coach's name is. But he was Kyle Whittingham's hand-chosen successor. Let's remember, the reason they don't have Kyle Whittingham is not because he took the Michigan job. The reason Utah doesn't have him is because Kyle Whittingham retired. He came out of retirement and took the Michigan job. He retired for a good 3 weeks there. And then Michigan came calling. I guess it was too good of an offer for him to decline there. But Utah, Kyle Whittingham put them in a spot where he felt like he could retire and leave them still in good hands and be confident in their future. So I think they will still be Utah. They're going to be Utah. Basically, their season will ride and die on if they beat BYU. So are they 9 wins or 10 wins? Because did they beat BYU or did they lose to BYU? So the Holy War is always an awesome game. But yeah, I think that will probably be all for talking about this AP poll. We squeezed out a good long chunk on the AP poll.
The one thing we didn't get to mention was Notre Dame because they're not in a conference, but Notre Dame, that's exactly where I thought they'd be ranked. I think CJ Carr is a really good quarterback, and Notre Dame has such an easy schedule this year. If Notre Dame goes 10-2, they probably make it. I mean, unless they lose to Miami again, and then there's that conversation that we had last year about Notre Dame or Miami being in. But I don't even think that's going to apply because I think Miami's going to easily win the ACC this year. I think Miami's way better than they were last year, and they made the national championship game last year. So That's kind of where I'm at with Notre Dame.
I think Notre Dame cruises to 11 or 12 wins this season. That schedule is super favorable. Their only tough matchups are BYU, which is at BYU, so that's really tough, and then hosting Miami, which is a tough one, obviously. But assuming they win one of those two, they are easily in this playoff. And so 4 is a great spot for them. That's about where they'll be by the end of the year. I'm pretty sure. So
yeah,
Notre Dame's in the right spot. And they won't have a conference championship because they refuse to do that. But it is what it is. Notre Dame in full control of their schedule. The game's up an easy one this year. I think because of that, they'll comfortably walk into the playoffs this year, and we'll see how they do in the playoff.
Unfortunately, Campbell, we didn't get to talk about your group of 5 playoff pick, Sacramento State, because they did not get any votes in the top 25. But
I should have mentioned it. That's some disrespect. It's a little bit of disrespect. Let's watch out. Just you wait.
Yeah.
Now you have to win all 13 games in the MAC to make it, but they're gonna do it. 13-0 Sacramento State. It's happening. You're not ready for them, but
come on, Hornets. Let's make some noise here.
Yeah, let's get some action going. The MAC has not made the MAC just gets overlooked in all of this in the world. They just nobody cares about them. Nobody thinks any MAC team at all can make the playoff. Why not? Why not the MAC? If the Big Ten is the most dominant conference, the MAC is in the same region. So why can't they be the second best?
If a MAC team can have a perfect regular season in college basketball, they could do it in college football too.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what they
shout out Miami. Shout out Miami of Ohio, 31-0. Never forget
until they lost the game. But
that doesn't count though.
But they won a tournament game. It was the play-in game, but they won a tournament game. So that was pretty cool still. So that's college basketball. But thank you, Jack, for joining my podcast once again.
Always a pleasure.
Got any content out here to plug before we have to go?
Not necessarily. It's kind of a slow part of the offseason. Football's coming though, and that's when everything's going to ramp up. I threw out a very brief article about Indiana, about some information about Indiana specifically in the AP poll. But once football season comes, though, I will have a lot more content out, and I'm sure the same can be said for you as well. We're going to just be pumping content out left and right throughout, from the beginning of September all the way through the end of January when the national championship game commences in Las Vegas. So it's going to be a fun but crazy month. We're going to be on the road together for a number of games, so we're going to have a lot of content coming out.
Football's coming up. I'm covering the Notre Dame men's soccer game, so I'll be writing something for that. So everything's just coming up quick. I would like to shout out for you. You did get a Twitter follower because of an article you wrote. And you wrote an article on Bryant Haynes, the defensive coordinator for Indiana football, and got followed by him. I think that's pretty cool. So that article's pretty good. It is deserving of getting a follow. So, I think you're doing good work. We're both so excited to get to football season. I'm just so ready for it. I think I'll have some more content coming up on this this platform. I probably won't podcast the rest of the week. It's just I'm gonna be too busy with moving into college and a bunch of stuff. But I think I'll put up an article or two on this platform. So we'll see how that goes. But all right, thank you for being here, Jack. Have a good day.
You as well.